Hello from Hunt Hill Audubon Sanctuary's Fire Pit. Today we're going to be learning a little bit about how fires can start and some different types of fuel and fire starters that we have. Now, first things first, we have to make sure that we are doing this safely. I'm doing this at the fire pit, which has an area that is totally cleared out so that fire can't spread. I also have with me a 5-gallon bucket of water in case I need to put a fire out. Now, there are 3 things that you need in order to start a fire. The first thing is all around us almost all the time, and that is oxygen. Now, you don't have to think a whole lot about oxygen, except for you need to think about how to not cut it off. When you are building a fire, think about where oxygen can get in and through so that you'll have enough airflow to keep the fire going. The next thing you're going to need is fuel. We have 3 different types of fuel, all of which you'll use. So you start out with the very thinnest stuff, the things that can start with just a spark. So you want things that are thinner than your fingernails, things like birch bark or leaves or pine needles. All of those things were great to get a fire started. Those are our tinder. After the tinder, we're going to move to something that is a little bit thicker, something that's about as thick as a pencil or your pinky finger. Those things are kindling. And our kindling can be things like branches or little sticks. It can also be some thicker types of bark like this. Once we've gotten our kindling going and we've got a little bit of a start to our fire, then we can start to add our fuel wood. That's those bigger logs like these ones that you can start to pile on and let them burn for much longer. Now, you still want to make sure that you're letting enough oxygen in through the whole thing. The third thing that you need in order to start a fire is some sort of spark or energy or heat. So our sparks can come from lots of different things. You're probably familiar with many of them, including matches, a lighter, or you might even be familiar with some other non-standard ways of starting a fire. Things like using a magnifying glass to use the energy from the sun, or more traditional ways like using flint and steel to hit the flint against the steel and make a spark. There are also some ways to make a friction fire using something called a bow drill. And how the bow drill works is you have what looks like a bow and arrow, and you use that to wrap it around a stick to help create friction with this stick and this piece right here. I'll show you how I use it. We won't start an actual fire with this one though. So right here, I'll stand or kneel on it. I'm going to stand on it this time. And then I have a little guard to protect my hand. So then I can use that to spin this and create a lot of friction, which will create heat. The next options, I'm going to come a little bit closer to the camera so you can see them a bit better. So we have 2 other really fun ways to create a spark or some heat. One is a starter. This one's a magnesium starter. And then another way is to use some 9-volt batteries and some steel wool. I'm going to bring those close to the camera so you can check them up closer. So we'll start with our magnesium starter. This is basically just a rod and a striker. And I have to find the right angle to hold my striker at. And I have to make sure that there's an exposed part. And then I just run it down and it creates a big, bright spark. Now, when you're trying to actually start a fire with this, you need to make sure that you have your tinder very close by so that it will catch that spark. The other thing that you can do is use a little bit of steel wool. I'm just going to take part of this off, just a very tiny bit. And if I were trying to really start a fire, I would put my tinder right underneath this. I'm going to just put it on a block of wood so I don't burn my hand. And then I use this 9-volt battery. That's the type that has both ends on the same side. And I'm just going to rub it up against this steel wool.